mean, I think everyone's going to be watching this series and saying, is IMT Smithy better or is CLG Dardoch better?
It's a trade that has been mutually beneficial for both teams.
Over here on Immortals, Smithy coming in, kind of being that calming voice. He spoke about composure, and Smithy has done just that for this team.
We get confidence by Jake.
Smithy gets strung, propels for He goes into the pit though, pumps the zone, he's just buying time. Damage still there, but Smithy, oh my god, he stole it!
Are you kidding me?
And Immortals are gonna save the game.
That was a thing of beauty from Smithy.
The new Dardoch includes CLG has looked good.
Here comes the attempt at a gank. Dardoch is here though, right into the CC, and he read the entire play. Player of the game, Dardoch's Gragas was pretty freaking great.
Both teams are doing really well.
What an insane game from CLG.
Well, Immortals are definitively a top-tier team.
And now Counterlogic Gaming will play Immortals to see who really got the better of that trade.
Welcome to week 4 of the North American League Championship Series. We've got battles for first all weekend long, starting with today's marquee matchup between Immortals and CLG, as the fans have packed the arena to see which of the two junglers will reign supreme. The talk of the town, the trade that came in earlier in the split. Hello, everyone. I'm James Dash Patterson, and joining me to break down today's matchups is former Amumu god Sam Kobe Hartman. So what happened, man?
That's a long time ago. I don't know.
Those Amumu mechanics left you?
I thought he was my friend.
Yeah, QER. Okay, there it is. Let's get a reminder of what's at stake this weekend. We've got Immortals, Team Dignitas, and Counterlogic Gaming all fighting to hold on to first place, while teams like Echo Fox and Cloud9 are on the outside trying to break in at 3-3. But none of that is set in stone, especially with our matches today. It all starts with our battle for first place as Immortals and Counterlogic Gaming face off in the battle arena. And after that, rookie jungler Mike Young and Phoenix One face off against Acadian and Echo Fox. But all eyes are going to be on that first matchup. And to kick off that discussion, let's go ahead and hear from Darshan and his thoughts on facing his former jungler of 2 years.
Playing against Immortals will probably be like the first time I've played against Smithy. And that'll be interesting because, you know, having played with Jake for 2 years, like now him being on the jungle for the other team, like he understands probably better than any other jungler, like how I play the game. Jake plays pretty well with Flame, like inking Flame a lot, and then he also plays really well with Ole in the mid game. So kind of like how he used to play with Afro, like the jungle support duo, it's kind of like Ole now. And so I kind of see some similarities on Immortals, like there are to CLG, but I still think we're the better team, and it's gonna be a hard match, but they're definitely not the strongest team.
Darshan enlightening us to some of his own preconceived notions on how exactly Smithy will play coming into today's matchup. And on the topic of preconceived notions, you know, this trade was the talk of the town. Everyone in the world had an opinion on who got the better end of the deal. You know, how will these guys slot into the team strategically? And to that end, Kobe and I decided to do a slightly deeper dive and statistically to kind of parse through some things about how these guys might match up here today.
Exactly. I mean, people were wondering, oh yeah, Smithy, he's this farm-oriented vision jungler, right? He's this nice guy. That's why they're having success on Immortals. But we wanted to dispel this myth after like week 2, because Smithy deserves credit for his jungle ganks that he's getting off in the early game. The stats that we went into, Dash, these are pre-15 minutes.
Exactly. The very first thing we took a look at is jungle proximity. So again, how active are they on the map in relation to the laners on their team?
Exactly. That's time spent within 2,000 range, which is level 1 Caitlyn Ultimate. And as you can see, both of them comparable numbers. These are two of the most active junglers, as you said. However, big difference is Smithy converting so much more of his time into actual kills and assists for his teammates than Dardoch is, even though Dardoch is spending time there. And it could be, you know, warding around, scuttle crab control, those other activities that you can perform around the lane while providing support, but not necessarily getting a
We
kill.
talk about converting into kills, and here we have the heat map of every single kill for both teams that involved either of the junglers. So we split the map, top side, bot side. Top side does include mid lane and above, so it's inclusive of mid lane, whereas bot side is everything south of mid lane. But we see two distinct focuses, different focuses from the two junglers.
Exactly. I mean, jungle proximity is one thing. Where are they actually finding these kills is a very, very clear story here. And if you watch the games and you pay attention to these teams, it's not really a surprise. People are already memeing about the Dar duo, Darshan and Dardoch up in the top lane. They've been, acquiring a lot of kills there. Meanwhile, bottom lane for Immortals, Ole and Cody-san also finding success.
All right, so of course now we've identified fine. Immortals is focusing bot side and CLG is focusing top side. Let's go into the microcosms of the lanes and see how the laners are benefiting from the attention that they're getting. Right here at the top, what I notice is, of course, Darshan finishing first both as a player in terms of kills and assists picked up per game, but also when the jungler's involved, he has the most. What strikes me is that Flame is finding relative success with very little attention.
Exactly. Flame is number 2 with relatively less jungle impact from Smithy. So Flame, people have noticed, has had kind of a breakout split for himself and really been rising to the occasion. Meanwhile, Darshan and Dardoch, while they are finding success, it's often together. And they're both benefiting.
So let's put some numbers to that jungle proximity. When we look at the time spent on the top side of the map from both junglers, again, this does include mid lane as well, Dardoch spends an average of 7% more of his first 15 minutes on the top side of the map. That equates to 48 seconds of in-game time, which is pretty significant.
Exactly. I mean, that could be multiple ganks, the scuttle crab and the vision that we talked about, or counter jungling. It's actually a large amount of time within League of Legends, even though it is under a minute and people are kind of brush it off.
And to some degree, it speaks towards the play style of the mid laners, and in particular, Huhi. Again, we've seen him on picks like the Aurelion Sol where he loves to roam. Well, guess what? He's linking up with Dardoch quite often to make moves around the map.
And that's the key. Your question about how well are these junglers actually going to be integrated into the teams has been so successful. Huhi is still playing that roam style. They're still finding kills. He's already having success by himself, but a lot of the time, jungle proximity could be mid laner and jungler close to each other in the bottom lane, and they're roaming together and making it work that way.
Speaking of the bot lane, it's no surprise that when we move ourselves down there, Immortals tops the table again. Cody-san and Ole, who deserve lots of credit in and of themselves for being first in the league there. Clearly, when the jungler is down there, I mean, doubling the kills and assists of Aframu and Stixay when Smithy's involved.
Exactly. As we saw in the heat map, skulls all over the place in the bottom of the map here for Immortals, and it has been true to that style, right? They identified that these guys are such a strong bottom lane, they want to play off the bottom lane, so then they lend more resources to that side of the map, trying to push down the turrets earlier, trying to get those kills.
All right, great. We've identified trends, patterns, and statistical, anomalies and whatnot. But what does this mean in terms of the context of the actual matchup, right? Because at the end of the day, Dardoch could just come into this matchup and go, actually, I'm going to go bot lane, the entirety of the first 15 minutes. So I think that's what makes this fun, is trying to identify how these players will themselves, parse through this information and affect their strategic, strategies coming into the game.
Exactly. Falling into a pattern, we always say, is one of the worst things that you can possibly do as a jungler, as anyone in League of Legends. And, the personal relationship might also affect this game, as 2 CLG members now on Immortals might, change the way that Smithy and Pobelter play.
All right, with the spotlight on the jungle matchup, it's time now for us to throw it over to the casters to kick off the matches. Enjoy.
Well, now you have all the info about the matches. Welcome, lords and ladies, to the battle arena. I am Rivington Bisson III, and casting alongside me are the men, the myths, the legendary Isaac Azale Cummings Bentley and Joshua Jat Leesman. Gentlemen.
Sure. I'll take it, but I'm really excited for the games as well. 5-1 versus 5-1.
Living up to it. Riv. I like it. Great energy. Let's kick off this series, jumping into the roster rundown. On the blue side, it is Immortals. That means we're going to start things off with Flame in the top lane, Xmithy in the jungle, Pobelter at mid, Cody-san at bot with Ole as his support, and Coach Song for picks and bans.
And on the red side today, it's Counter Logic Gaming. In the top lane, Darshan. In the jungle, Dardoch. Mid lane, Huhi. Bot and support going to be Stixay and Aframu with Coach 6.
I'm really excited to get into this game. I'm excited to get into every game, but this in particular, we have the matchup of what is another civil war here in the NALCS. We had Dash and Kobe talking about Dardoch and Xmithy in the jungle, and this is Xmithy, best Lee Sin NA, against Dardoch, cleanest Lee Sin NA. So who really can take the trophy?
Yeah, and I like this as well because as we're seeing these players' careers get longer and longer, we're getting to see more of these grudge matchups after they've left a team because it's no longer you're not on this esports team and you're just retiring. These guys are sticking around and improving after being taken off of teams. So Xmithy and Pobelter and most of this Immortals teams are kind of outcasts in that sense, and I really like seeing the way they've come together so far this split.
It's definitely cool to see them open a new chapter, in their career. Xmithy has been this guy that at best people talk about him as underrated, and at worst they talk about him as a liability. And this split, he has been having this resurgence, really performing well. And Dardoch is turning over a new leaf here too. He's with CLG, a team that he feels he can compete on, and he has a chance to really prove just how far he can go.
Xmithy really, or the team revealing, he's the voice that they needed on that team. Dardoch really just being a force in the jungle. They are able to really kind of cordon off his hyphiness, if you will, and really get him to go straight and narrow on the line, which has made him a better player along with the team.
Yeah, and we also have to point out this is the first the North American LCS has been on patch 7.12.
That is true.
Immediate jungle target banning coming out from COG. They're going at him.
You might say that.
It's ruthless, the triple ban on Xmithy, but Elise is available. That's not going to be picked up here, and we see that the Galio is going to go over. Probably could be for Flame, could be for Pobelter. We've even seen it a couple times as support.
Yeah, and this is the thing that I've seen the most from CLG is they have a huge priority on Gragas. I think they're going to pick that right now, and it can go either in the top or the jungle. They've put a pretty equal distribution between the two roles, and then being able to take Elise from Xmithy could also be strong, but all the priority picks left up, like the Caitlyn as well, make it an even more difficult choice.
Yeah, and if you want to go that Gragas and Elise top side, you do kind of have to get an AD mid laner, otherwise it can become extremely easy for the Galio to itemize.
Whoa.
That can be problematic. So early Tahm Kench is pretty interesting here.
Yeah, I think this is fascinating as well, with Thresh still being up. It's one of the best things Ole has played. With Blitzcrank being Aphromu's most played champion, this actually is a much different look so far for CLG. 0 Tahm Kench games out of the 8 different supports that Aphromu has played thus far.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit surprising, especially blind, because you would think as an answer to Morgana or to Thresh, which are two things that Ole likes to play, makes a lot of sense, but just going to be picking that up blind, and Bard should be able to deal pretty well with the Tahm Kench and can kind of roam around the map and to match that.
I thought they were going to do Nunu. Gragas and Elise are still available though.
Heard the gasps. Gragas does get locked in. We're seeing what CLG can round this out with in their composition here. Caitlyn, Tahm Kench to start things off.
Yeah, and they still technically have a lot of options, but I'm quite surprised they didn't pick the Gragas in an earlier rotation based on the importance they put on the pick back in week 2. I would expect them to do a jungler here. I thought it was going to be Elise this whole time, but they've decided to go completely away from that. And Dardoch's going to have his first Kha'Zix game of the split.
And it'll be interesting to see what they can actually get out of this, because they very clearly are targeting Xmithy heavily. Triple ban. They know that Gragas is one of his best champions as well, so it's easy to predict that this would be something that Immortals would want to pick up. You have to feel like CLG thinks that they can get a head-to-head advantage, perhaps bully him out with Dardoch on this early aggressive jungler. You can get in Gragas' face. You definitely can outduel him.
6-1 on the split for Xmithy as the most played jungler. And this will now kind of come about the flex picking of the Galio. So far, the only thing that I like about COG's draft is the fact they have Caitlyn. And I think that champ is busted on this patch, and it's something that Immortals has found a lot of success with. Other than that, I feel like Immortals has the 3 power picks that they would want early on in the draft.
This is really interesting. The CLG is saying that's the Galio and the Gragas are not going in a lane. The Gragas is maybe somewhere. They already banned the Renekton now. Kind of thinking that one's going to be a jungler.
Yeah, I mean,
it's an interesting ban phase.
We're obviously assuming that Gragas is going to go jungle, but it still could theoretically be Gragas top, Galio mid, draft something like Elise in. So, because they have all the flexibility on the Immortals draft, it makes it even harder to use the second ban phase for CLG. Because if you just ban out 2 top laners here, then they say, okay, well, Flame's just going to play this top. It was that's something that doesn't necessarily have to affect you.
Yeah, the only thing that I thought they would ban would be more AD carry picks, and they didn't even ban the Varus, which is Cody's son's second most played after the Caitlyn, and one of the better picks you can take into it in the laning phase. So I actually do have a lot of confusion over this COG draft, only because it goes against the majority of the trends they've set in the first 2 weeks.
One thing I will say, despite the fact that this was blind pick Tom Kench, you know, these are 3 members from Immortals that have CC, that have catch. And if Aphromoo is positioned well, he can keep Stixxay safe.
Yeah.
And we know how powerful Stixxay can get on this late game Caitlyn.
Yeah, absolutely, but they also picked the Tom Kench before the pick stuff was even taken, so they have so much faith in this Tom Kench pick, or it's just the fact that it is a best of 3, it is a long split, they want to play many different things, and they're going with something a little more cookie cutter with the Tom Kench.
Did he not hover Warwick? Is that a first? No, just kidding. Orianna gets locked in on the side of Counter Logic Gaming. They're going to do that, obviously blind at this point, and safe one with Ori as of late. They've banned out the Thalia and a few other things that can make his job hard.
And the Ori makes sense alongside the Caitlyn Tom Kench. You know, shield him up, speed him up, keep him safe with this Tom Kench, allow Stixxay to play very aggressive in the team fights. That said, some of the tough matchups are still available. You know, things like Syndra are still on the table here that they didn't ban out. They actually banned out Lucian. I'm thinking now more for the mid lane, as people have been playing Lucian into Orianna as somewhat of a semi-counter. So this is actually Galio mid. This is Galio mid now. Probably going to be J4 top and Gragas jungle, although that could get flexed around. I would be surprised.
And because Galio and Gragas with Runic Echoes most likely is so much magic damage, they're generally going to be okay. It is fairly heavy on the physical damage side as of now, but overall I think that rounds out very well for Immortals team composition. The amount of engage they have on that
long range
is really, really
long
high.
range.
Yeah, the J4 Galio combo in particular is incredibly strong, especially against people who don't have, you know, those dash or those gap closers. Like, if you can ult in on J4, Galio ults in immediately on top of your head, you have the stone plate, like, plus your shield combo, which is extremely powerful on J4 already, and he's gonna be so hard to take down and have so much dive.
Yeah, I agree with that for the Immortals composition, but with the Camille locked in at the end, there were Camille buffs on the patch. The passive has been buffed in a few other things as well. So this makes the Tom Kench pick make a little bit more sense if the entire time they were just hoping to counterpick Darshan, a split pusher, and choose to play that strategy. Because if you separate this out into 2 separate squads, like the 4 people and then the 1 split pusher, which is going to be the Camille, the disengage, poke, and wave clear, and like the 4v4 fighting is really good with those champions, and Tom Kench helps prevent you from getting picked off and engaged on.
Another thing that Tom Kench does bring to the table alongside that Kha'Zix is if you have an isolated 1v1 on the side lane, your ultimate to deliver that jungler in and swing that side lane in your favor is very, very powerful. And if the Camille can get ahead, she certainly should be able to outscale Jarvan in that 1v1 late game.
We will see the coaches shake hands. They make their way off to the backstage and leave the players with their final words. Hashtag IMT win, hashtag CLG win. Darshan, as we said, taking that Camille to the top side. Lately falling behind a bit in CS, being more utility for the team because he's in other lanes, doing more to help the team. This time he'll be helping the team from the side lane, and CLG's back to that split push. We'll see how they work it out here. Immortals versus Counter Logic Gaming. We are about to be on to the Rift.
Yeah, really excited to see these 2 teams. The winner will take temporary sole possession of first place in the North American LCS in a league where C9 and TSM have met in 2 finals in a row. These teams trying to jump out to that start and enter the conversation for best team in North America.
It's looking like nothing too crazy going to be happening here at level 1. And CLG is one of the teams that does sometimes like to mix in these level 1 strategies where they are actually trying to figure something out, trying to get something done with the 5-man invades, but going to be pretty passive.
And the analyst desk broke down earlier some of the jungling tendencies. Dardoch has been the highest jungle proximity of all junglers in the North American LCS, essentially meaning he spends the most time around his teammates in the first 15 minutes of the game. Has not actually paid off in many kills or assists, but I will argue it has given them plenty of lane pressure.
That'll sting.
He should still have time to recall and get back to full health unless Flame can interrupt his next recall, in which case he might lose out on a few.
And that would actually be pretty annoying, but he's not going to be able to do it. We also have to attract the fact we didn't really talk about, you know, this Jhin pick, right? Jhin is traditionally not considered a very strong laner. He is paired up with the Bard, who should have, you know, a laning advantage over Tom Kench. But even still, we may be able to see, you know, Stixxay on this Caitlyn, getting an early edge and really starting to harass them. They're going to look to try to steal away some of these raptors.
Get some.
Neither on level 2. Got 1. He might get 2. He gets 2.
Got it.
So now he doesn't even get level 2 off the camp. Even with the big raptor, he's still level 1. And getting that second one slows down your half quite a bit.
Exactly, and they were actually trying to do something really cute that did happen in the European LCS in the series that was just on that stream, where the mid laner pulls the Raptors while the bottom lane pulls the red. And it's a super pull for the Gragas, because then essentially he'll get level 3 and slingshot ahead of the other jungler. And in this case, a little bit of it can be a race towards that top side, since if it's going to be a 4-1 split push game, the early lane pressure you can put on the Camille can have very long-lasting effects on the rest of the map.
It's also pretty important that they actually did that leash, because it didn't mean that a level 1 Gragas had to solo down red buff without smite, right?
Yeah.
He had to smite the Raptor there too.
Almost like a failsafe.
Yeah, so I mean, the fact that they were there speeds up his clear actually massively.
Yeah, it actually makes it fairly inconsequential, because he's still getting level 3 off of his third camp. And you can see Dardoch with the fairly standard at this point, 3 camp clear, and he messes up his recall. So a lot of junglers do this on the fast clear for Krugs, where if you kill the biggest Krug, and then basically you kill the base Krugs, and then they will despawn if you don't kill it. You lose out on about 60 gold, but you save 10 to 15 seconds. And in a game where the first gank can sometimes win, I've seen a lot of junglers switch to this. What you don't want to do is get interrupted by them chasing you, because then you waste a lot of the efficiency and you just lose gold.
In a game of seconds, what was it, 48 seconds that they spent more time towards that top lane? So those 15 of them are pretty dang important. 3 minutes in, a little bit of scuffle in the jungle hasn't really provided an advantage anywhere here. Appleman tries to grab brush control on Cody Sun and Ole.
And 6A is just waiting for that fourth shot to be used, and he will continue to try to poke out his opponent. Cody Sun did go longsword. Traditionally, we've been seeing a lot of like longsword 3-pot for lanes that they're trying to get through. Longsword refillable is kind of like a half and half type situation where you're not getting that full extra sustain, and Dardoch moving down here may mean some of the chip damage that they've gotten down could pay off.
They'd have to go very aggressive for this gank to pay any type of dividends. The lane is already somewhat pushed in, but
seems like as well, Alphaman wants to bait the Cosmic Binding in so they wouldn't get stunned under the turret. Still, Immortals playing very safe with the extra aggression Alphaman was putting in the lane.
Yeah, and this is the type of gank that won't really show up on the scorecard because it didn't net a kill or an assist, and it added to his jungle proximity, which would be an inefficient play. But we have to watch how the lane goes from here. Knowing there's no flash on Ole, how will that influence the way the rest of Immortals play the lane?
I mean, that can make you play even much more defensively. So even if you don't get a kill there, this Caitlyn Tom Kench lane may be able to bully out harder than they normally would otherwise be able to do. And now Pobelter's roaming down. Level 4 Galio roam with Smithy here.
Smithy's right there. They're going to make it through the Cosmic Binding. This is to save Stixxay. You can see ramped up immediately. Flashes forward to get him to safety. But they still want Alphamu. They get first blood. Immortals on the board.
And that's the efficiency of the gank that will show up on the scorecard. That's where Smithy has excelled so far this split. First amongst all junglers in kills and assists pre-50 minutes, getting first blood in this game. And it's because the team ran down for it. It wasn't just Smithy making that gank. Pobelter had also roamed from the mid lane, gaining lane priority by using that early teleport to get back in lane and get the shove onto Orianna. So that play was brewing for several minutes before Immortals execute for first blood.
Yeah, it's a really nice roam here from Pobelter as well. Like, moving down, people are not going to expect the pre-6 roam from Galio, and that was extremely effective. But there were a couple of summoners, committed. Smithy's flash, Pobelter's flash. So Dardoch now wants to try to get a little bit more aggressive, see if he can move around the map and maybe make something of that.
Dardoch taking the scary pass out, but he doesn't take too much damage. Pobelter with his teleport previously on that as well, so they probably thought he was staying in lane even
Flame
more.
without a mana.
Yeah.
It's not looking good for Flame. He does have minions in his favor, and that's going to help him out just a little bit, but Darshan was losing that battle. It's been very back and forth, and it's basically a missed skill, and you have the upper hand.
Yeah, Darshan's got the wave in the right spot now, too, after that harass. We're going to watch this one more time. It is through a ward, but the closing potential of the magical journey when comboed with the jungler, and the fact that Aphromoo doesn't have exhaust. He goes for the Devour, but then doesn't dodge the initial CC. If he would have been able to flash away from the Jhin Deadly Flourish, there's a chance they can escape that gank, but just more well executed by the Immortal squad to get the kill.
And this has really been Smithy all season long. He's so proactive with those early body slam flashes on the Gragas, and now they're looking to chase down.
Oh, great dodge. That could have been a kill on Stixxay. That's his heal down flash is up for him, so they may have gotten that summoner. Cody Sun and Ole take control of the lane after getting pushed back themselves here, and we'll see how they continue to play it. Jungle our top side. So it looks like they have some time here to play safe, and that's going to be Ole roaming around to get the vision in.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about the Tahm Kench during the draft phase and how perplexing it was.
Yeah.
It's still fairly clear that it is probably for the later stages of the game where they're trying to get poked out, but I don't like it in this situation because they invest the early pick onto Caitlyn, and they're still not lane dominant. Yes, the ganks did have a lot to do with it, but the Bard is going to out-harass the Tahm Kench in these situations, and if CLG would have put 2 early picks into the Caitlyn and then the Bard, they'd actually have a substantially more turret pressure early in order to get them to that later game split pushing phase.
We talked a little about the Thresh as well in Champion Select. It's an Ole champion, but that's also used to be an Afro champion and has that safety of shield and the aggression you need.
Thresh certainly is a strong pick. I think one of the cool things about Ole, though, is he can make people hesitant to select it because he also plays Morgana, and not a lot of people are playing that champion, and that is considered a pretty good matchup against the Thresh. So it's one of those extra dynamics that kind of Ole has gotten for himself because he plays these diverse champions, and these champions that other people aren't really picking up.
Swimming in the deep end. No kiddie pool for him. 8 minutes in, transfer over to Pobelter as we get that next buff up for the side of blue. See how he plays this. They're still waiting on theirs, and only this 1 kill to the side of Immortals. Things have seemed to slow down. No huge lane advantages, so we look down at the CS. Stixxay does have a bit of a lead, but it's about a wave.
And one of the interesting things about this comp is, I think that Immortals comp is pretty execution heavy. You have to be pretty aggressive. You have to be proactive in the mid to late game and be making dives, setting up plays, because if you cannot pull that off, I think that in a standard 1-4 type split push game, CLG should have a heavy advantage. The Orianna and this protection that's there for the Caitlyn really will give them the edge. But if they can pull off flanks, if they can pull off TP plays, they're going to have a really tough time actually escaping that, even with the Tahm Kench.
Might be going for another gank, but they would need Pobelter to ult in on them as well. And that also kind of speaks to the type of game CLG usually likes playing.
Yeah.
Throughout the first 2 weeks, CLG is first in the LCS in kills and first in the LCS in deaths as Xmithie continues to invade and exert his pressure over the map. Very nice job detonating his Q while smiting to take that blue away from Dardoch.
Yeah, and for Dardoch, not having a smite, not much of a way to fight back there. So proactive play from Immortals. They feel that they have the edge and they can make these plays. You can evade more aggressively because you have the Galio ultimate in range. When you're playing around the mid laner, you always have that assist.
Flash back, Dardoch just above as well.
So a bit of a mistake there from Smithy. If you actually instantly ultimate out of the E, you can do that unavoidably. He tries to go for what looked like an auto there perhaps, and then is not able to pull it off.
Yeah, not quite the play. Now Dardoch in a fight with Pobelter.
Big back and forth. Shockwave is up here and may want to make it go in. There it is. Damage onto Pobelter is enough, and CLG get one back on their side. It looks like everybody disperses from here, but Darshan uses this chance to get himself in the jungle.
Good little play from CLG, but a bit of an underestimation, it seems like there, as Pobelter still had his flash. Maybe could have tried to flash away from that Shockwave.
A slow commitment. I was wondering if Ruhi was going to Shockwave as well, but it seems like they still wanted it. You see a little bit of a steal from the jungle, knowing they have an upper hand on Xmithie. We'll see if the pressure is added towards the top side. We'll see how this happens once again.
Exactly. Taking another look at it, it is a good wait and see by Dardoch, getting the isolated Q onto Pobelter for the jump. Not to mention, they know the flash ult is down from Xmithie, so that's why Dardoch wanted to take this fight, even if he's been a little bit behind for most of the game. The quick trigger on the Shockwave basically tests whether or not Pobelter is willing to flash very early. He does not flash early enough, and he falls.
And Pobelter was actually channeling his ultimate there. He was trying to ult away, probably to the top lane. So he actually, once he's in that channel, he cannot flash. You cannot flash to interrupt that. So that's what he got caught on. I thought he could save the summoner and just use that ultimate. It does get punished.
After all that in the jungle as well, Xmithie's warding the steal. The blue is back over to Huhi, so he actually isn't any worse for the wear and being able to clear his lane. Top lane, a little bit of love for Flame. They throw down the Hextech ultimatum, but it's not going to be enough. I thought Stixxay could get into range, and they actually hold the ace in the hole. They just get the pressure on the turret here.
Yeah, CLG does this fairly often, actually, switching their lanes up quickly. Even when they have a winning matchup, they will still do it because they're also trying to get Darshan ahead in this game. If they could have gotten that kill onto Flame, there's a chance it slingshots them ahead. Even without that, look at how Flame now sticks around to try and wave clear, and Darshan has a jump on the bottom side farm.
Exactly. They're ahead on the tempo of that play, so even though they don't need to swap away from bot lane, they can do it faster, they can get more of an advantage. That said, Immortals is setting up 3 men on the bot side, and they're going to look to try to dive Darshan when he comes down there, so Immortals may end up getting first turret regardless.
Immortals decided not to match, and then Flame did a great job clearing the minion wave with the 3 longswords. This will most likely be first turret over to Immortals. Interesting how they didn't send anyone down to try and disrupt that bottom play or have more of a dive set up on the top side. It was the lone Caitlyn gank, whereas often you'll see the support come up with him and a jungle gank. So more coordination coming out of the side of Immortals with that play. And not only are they going to get the first turret gold in the trade, but also they're going to be able to pick up the Mountain Drake where CLG takes the Rift Herald.
Yeah, the question is going to be, how much can CLG get with this Rift Herald, right? So you give up that first turret, you trade for a turret of your own, which gives you a little bit less gold, and then it's a trade of the Dragon for the Rift Herald. If you can get a pick and take down 1 or 2 turrets, perhaps, with that Rift Herald, it may pay off for CLG, but for now, the play certainly goes in favor of Immortals.
Yeah, we have this debate all the time. Will you take a Drake or an early game Rift Herald? And so much of it will depend on how good you are at executing in that 4-minute window. The Mountain Drake will be good later in the game if the game stays close because of the pressure it can add to the Baron and the Drake later on in the game. So as Isaac just said, so much of it now is an emphasis on CLG to get a kill or find a lane where Immortals can't defend and get at least 1 turret.
And I think it does make some sense, with the kind of playstyle that they're trying to play. When you have a split pusher like Camille, if you can bring Kha'Zix, if you can take down this now flashless J4, kill him, get some turrets and inject that gold into your split pusher, because they know if they can get Darshan ahead, he should be able to split push this game and be very, very effective.
She just got back and finishing a few recipes of his items, so would definitely love that gold. Team to get into position. Huhi getting engaged on immediately. They go for the hero hit as well, and he's just chomped up as Tahm Kench comes into play in the mid lane this time and really fizzles out Immortals engaged.
Yeah, and there's Tahm Kench outside of the laning phase where he can be incredibly obnoxious right there because that's the dream combo Jarvan Galio, but it actually gets stuffed.
This is the range we were talking about from Immortals. They always have the chance to tempt you about that engage, and now with the range, they have the choice to take it. It just pushes CLG off the turret enough. That's big. The engage here. It's going to be Xmithy. Oh, what a timing, but it's still eaten up by Alphamu. He wins in that one.
Oh, Smithy needed to hit them both, but CLG looking for the re-engage now. Darshan has to be beat in.
He does not decide to dive in. Smart choice by him. He would have been so focused out by himself.
So some really smart stuff from Immortals using the Jhin ultimate to zone CLG off and get the initial turret. But Smithy would have needed to hit both Tahm Kench and Huhi with his ultimate to be able to deny the fact that Gragas can eat him up. Unfortunately for him, it looked like he just caught Huhi, so Aphromoo can eat him out of that ultimate and keep him safe.
Yeah, and I do feel like Xmithy ulted earlier than he had to. The flash was down on both Aphromoo and Huhi during that play. It's now up right now, so if they were timing the summoner spells, he could have been much more patient after this beautiful Bard ultimate by Olay. He catches both of them, no one has flash. Xmithy can just wait. Both Pobelter and Xmithy shoot early. So the ult essentially hits nothing, and now Aphromoo falls warding while that replay was happening.
I mean, as well, if he does eat them, then you knock them both back at the same time. And
Yeah,
hey,
it's all about patience.
2 for 1. Why not? Good kill there onto Aphromoo as they find CLG roaming a little bit. Darshan still in the top lane, causing pressure. Will be met with Flame in just a few moments here. And it looks like Immortals is just grabbing this area around the next Drake. Get that vision up. They still have a while to go, but they do have much better map control at this point.
And so far, Smithy has been getting the better of Dardoch. He has been able to make more plays, have more effect on the map, and so many people coming into this game are looking to see, it can't be a win-win. Who got the better half of the trade? Is Smithy the one who comes out better, or is it Dardoch? And these guys are going to be looking to prove that they are the ones who are on the better team, that they are the ones who are going to be more successful. There's certainly a lot riding on this game, I think, for both teams, but for the junglers in particular.
I wonder to what extent, even for the few seconds we talk about, was Dardoch thrown off by how fast Smithy actually got through his jungle. Because they probably didn't know that Red was only there for a few basic auto attacks and then he was to the other side. So Dardoch's timing may have been off as well in the early game.
Definitely a lot of mind games going on, and Dardoch's tendencies of having such a high jungle proximity and his first gank not working really did pay off in the side of Immortals, and it looked like the Rift Herald was close to expiry here.
Oh, TP coming in from Flame. It looks like they're going to try to go bot and collapse on CLG.
That'll hurt their turn in the mid, but they're going for the big play here.
Rift Herald solo mission in the mid lane as the fight goes towards the bot side. 6A's eaten up. We've seen this one before. Summoner spells are there for the 8 carry, but it's not going to be enough. Pobelter picks that one up with Winds of War as Ole comes up big with the crowd control. And to the front of the line, I thought Pobelter was going a little harder, but he pulls back as they go 2 kills on that and still have their mid.
Yeah, and Immortals willing to pull the trigger on these plays. It is Flame teleporting to the fights to make the plays rather than Darshan, as we have seen in the first 3 weeks of the North American LCS. So the Rift Herald doesn't even quite finish off the turret as they're able to give a little bit of poke damage towards it. And another nice play there by Immortals. Love the patience on Flame for his Cataclysm, waiting for the Devourer to regurgitate Stixay out and then getting the ult in.
And this was very well done by Immortals. It did feel like Stixay might have been able to get out if the Bard Binding hadn't actually connected, but it looks like it's timed just as he's getting spat out.
Yeah.
And if the initial connection is going to hit, even if you use a move block like that, you still get tagged. So just that tiny little difference in timing. Had he not got caught, Stixay had his flash and should have been able to survive.
CLG trying to pick up in their jungle what is left and clear this vision out. You see Immortals actually just pinched right through CLG there. They feel very confident about the moves they're making and are not hesitating.
And CLG now really are going to be trying to take down this mid lane outer because that is all that they really got from the Rift Herald, just some chunk damage on it. But anytime you have an obvious objective like that, Immortals can look to set up another play. They can look to try to counteract that and hard engage on you with the Galio, with the Gragas, with this J4. So CLG has to try to be a bit patient, make sure they do their due diligence, get some vision, know where the other members are before they look to try to force anything.
It's also getting tough for Huhi because you see that many people, or those 3 guys, I should say, engage, and they're not really your primary shockwave target. It's not going to do that much damage.
And every time your flash is down against this team composition, if Immortals wants to kill you, they're going to get it. And then it's all about CLG being able to set up the right counter engage. And if they fall too far behind, they're going to lose the ability to do that. With that being said, CLG does want to extend this game into the later phases. Camille will win late game 1v1s against Jarvan. Caitlyn will do more damage than Jhin in the late game. And Orianna has higher impact fights on 4 and 5 items than the Galio does. So it's all on Immortals now to continue the proactive, aggressive play and take CLG in this first game.
And I think the double Mountain Drakes is going to help them do that because you get to the mid stages of the game, you get to this time around 25 minutes, and one of the best ways to close out the game is with a Baron. With the double Mountain Dragon, you can burn that down so quickly, even though their team is not particularly suited for rushing down there.
Deadly Flourish just misses, but they give Dardoch a bit of hell towards the top side. It looks like that's the focus for Immortals. Even Flame is going to be up here. His teleport's down, so this is a commitment. CLG should see what's kind of going on here. Darshan could have a good push.
Looks like Hui's going to decide to come up as well. They're not sure where all of Immortals is because Immortals has such good vision across the map right now. They have not allowed CLG to get any aggressive warding done. And they're able to move back and forth between the lanes. So CLG has to kind of play the game as if Immortals could be anywhere.
And it's so hard to split push as Darshan when you're in these situations.
Yeah.
Still not at the point where he will be able to win easy duels against Flame, or even Pobelter for that matter, who's been able to build up a lot of armor with his Ninja Tabi and his Glacial Shroud. So incredibly difficult moment of the game right here.
Galio is also such a good answer to split pushers in general because you have such safe wave clear. Like, you can just refuse to fight this guy and keep clearing the wave. So if J4 cannot actually match up and doesn't have strong enough wave clear later in the game, you can simply group J4 with the team and move Galio down to try to answer that Camille, and not necessarily going to be able to outduel him or kill him, but you can wave clear, and then if your jungler comes, you can lock him down in 2v1.
It's so nice to be able to have the double teleport, something that was banned out in Shen by Immortals in that second phase. Now Pobelter, when, as we see Flames teleport down, be the one to make that transition. We'll see how much Immortals actually starts to spread, CLG thin here, with that ability to go cross-map and make their way towards the top side.
And double mountain with this type of vision control is exactly where Immortals want to be. The more control wards they get in the jungle here, the more they can deny vision, the more fear CLG will feel about that Baron buff and their ability to contest it.
Just a good move from Immortals straight up the top side. CLG does not have eyes on where they are going, so they're going to try to get up here and defend this, but the turret is almost dead, so now it's just 1 or 2 autos away from going down, and Immortals will be able to collect that gold later on.
Yeah, and Immortals knows the answer to the question right now, who wins a straight-up 5v5? It is them.
Yeah.
Who he doesn't have his items yet, Styx is not at Infinity Edge, so they want to force these things, and they should continue to do so. I actually want them to be more aggressive. They have so much tankiness on that team. If Styx goes up there to go down for that turret, throw the Jarvan ult at him, throw the Bard ult in, try and get those combos, because if they can get any kill, one kill, they probably get the Baron off of it and much more.
Darshan back and forth between Scuttle and bot lane. There's still so much damage to be done on that bot turret. He has a lot of time to work on it. 4-1, Immortals not giving CLG any time, continue to work on the rest of their turret.
I really just am so impressed by their vision game. It's rare to see a game that is this one-sided as far as vision control. It just feels like it's been so long since CLG has been able to get any deep warding. And Immortals deserves a lot of credit as a unit for moving around, for clearing it out, and for really establishing this, because that's going to help them utilize their mount. That's going to help them, get the Baron and perhaps close out the game.
Exactly, and there's only so many wards on the map. Xmithie going Tracker's Knife and Dardoch going Chilling Smite also influences that outside of already having a lead. Ole has been consistently one of the better warders in the league, and all these things are kind of coming together to include this vision lead.
Pushing it forward and clearing it out. We actually saw the effect of that vision the first time when IMT stole that blue, which in the end went back over to Huhi, but those wards started that early in the jungle and have stayed forward. This resulting in CLG now placing 4 defensive pink wards. None of these are at their advantage. They're trying to react to everything Immortals is doing.
And they're trying to make sure that they at least have control over the red side of the jungle, so they're not just getting let out of the game. They can continue to farm this, and if you can maintain control in that area, it allows you easy access to at least check on the Baron, to know if your opponents are going for it.
23 minutes now. And it looks like if Immortals do get a good stretch on CLG, that Baron could be an option, but with the power they have, I'm sure they're more easily able to find a fight just somewhere outside of the Baron pit.
Yeah, and with the 3 control wards they have in the jungle, I'm surprised Immortals isn't forcing harder. There's not even a large amount of pressure on those bottom lane turrets. You can actually concede a bottom lane turret to the Camille if it means you're getting your 4-on-4 or your 5-on-5 in the Baron pit. So CLG, in their sense, is playing good defense, scouting with the 2 scrying orbs they have, as well as the Orianna ball, but I feel like that only lasts for so long until Immortals pulls off the fight.
You see how scared you would say Cody's son is as the Jhin walking up to get shots onto the turret isn't the safest thing here. So once they do get up there, they're going to need a few more people to do some damage.
And it is also one of those things where there's more pressure on Immortals to make something happen. CLG is happy to play this very slow game where they're getting the most out of that scaling. They're allowing their Caitlyn to get huge. They're allowing their Orianna to get huge. And Immortals, while their comp certainly they can win late game, you do feel like there's more of a clock. There's more of something where it's this massive mid-game power before the Caitlyn has her 3-4 items and her armor pen and everything. It's so hard for her to deal with this insane amount of damage and kind of dive coming at her.
Yeah, and that's where Galio is right now. He's in that unkillable state, I feel like. Abyssal Mask plus Frozen Heart at the point of the game before any AD damage dealer can have a Last Whisper or AP damage dealer can have a Void Staff. It's the strongest point in the game for Galio. So now, even more than it was 5 minutes ago, Immortals is in their power spot.
See, they get Infernal here. A lot of uncontested objective taking going on. We know CLG to be quite a bloody team in their games for how they play, but this one they can't even find the fights really as Immortals work around them.
And one thing to keep in mind, to give CLG some credit around this Infernal and sacrificing that, obviously it's great for Immortals, but this is not a full damage dealing type team, right? There's not a massive amount of AD and AP that are going to be built up on, say, the Galio or even Gragas or even the Bard. So like, it's not like it's a Zyra and a a J4, sorry, rather a Zyra and a Jason, these sorts of things. So you get less out of it as a team with a lot of tanks, but it's still going to be very valuable.
He's trying to take out Darshan. He's been hiding in a side rush for so long. This is why.
Oh, the flash taunt brings in the Durand. Looks like they're going to hang out in the ultimatum for a little bit. They like the space. It looks good. Kovalchuk picks up another one. 2-1-2. As the Immortals are just being systematic about what they're taking.
And that is a very big pick for Immortals. They could try to force pretty heavily here, either on the Baron or on some turrets, with 40 seconds down for Darshan.
Yeah, and with double Mountain Drake, it doesn't mean they have to turn to Baron right away. Pretty easy to take a big chunk out of this bottom lane turret. still playing very smart as well. It's so interesting seeing this low kill game out of CLG, who has by far the most kills and deaths of all teams in the North American LCS. And you'd often expect if CLG falls behind, oh, they're just going to try and make plays forever and be really aggressive. But because of the inherent scaling advantage they have, and because Immortals has so many of the initiation tools, we're kind of seeing the opposite of that. So I do want to credit CLG a little bit here for, I think, doing most of the right thing while behind. Right. Even if I don't like their draft or the reason they are behind, I think they're doing the right thing now.
Absorbing the pressure, seeing if they can throw it back at Immortals at some time soon. However, Immortals, far from making mistakes. Here, Ole, getting a little crazy, but with the vision they have, kind of knows the boundaries he can push here. Shares a little fruit with Dardoch. I mean, why not? What a nice guy. But still, just taunting CLG here.
Flames looking. Galio ultimate could come in.
This is even disjointed, and CLG still can't really answer to it. Spit out and flash coming through. Afromoon now on the sore end of this engage as the Kaboom. There the redemption's coming in for the heals. Who's going to live? And also Pobelter is in, as he is the hero of the fight, but who comes up with the kill? Who is the victor? Afromoon goes down. Ole is also down as supports have fallen. Darshan looking to get in, but can he find that in? As it does not happen. Xmithy and Pobelter on the front line, and now CLG try to route down mid. That is a low turret, but it doesn't look like they're gonna get it.
Continues, who he's caught.
Solo knocked up, can't even use his abilities, he goes down. The ghost was used at the last second to try to run away, but he still falls, and the chase now to Darshan and Dardoch.
Yeah, and Darshan was trying to cut the wave there to deny their push, but sticks a very low, no summoners, flash available onto the end flame. I think he has to just back off and give this up, or he's certainly going to get dove.
Darshan's still looking for some type of play, and Afro coming in now, but Stixay's gone.
Missile Voyage, Stixay gets obliterated out of the fight, and Darshan has been on the wing the whole time, looking for that in. But Immortals keep cycling back. They keep finding where that entry could be, and they shut it off. They walk away with second tier mid.
Yeah, that's the type of fight that Immortals really wanted, and I also think it speaks to a bit of an Achilles heel of CLG when they're playing these split push competitions, is Darshan, like a moth to a flame, is drawn to team fights in these split pushing scenarios. The team is down, they're gonna lose 5v5s, yet he's pulled up to collapse after the fight has already gone awry, and he really didn't do much of anything after he collapsed in this, and could have taken that turret bottom while this whole fight is happening.
It's one of those fights where they know that Darshan had been picked off, then he is bot side, they can go for an aggressive play. Galio roams over, and that's why you can go for the full commitment. You have this massive amount of damage reduction onto Flame as he's diving in, and then very good CC was layered on Stixay, pushing him completely out of the fight.
Yeah, and also, that fight is over by the time Darshan teleports into it, because they have the Jarvan, Bard, Gragas, Galio super combo that is able to catch CLG out seemingly time and time again.
And at the time, that was basically a turret wave for him in the bot side. Might have been able to take it down. Still's down there. Flame will pay his respects in just a moment as he gets his vision down, then to clear the wave. As Darshan has been just doing his job until those fights. As we kind of said, it's been that pull away. We see him fall behind in CS due to those situations a little bit here, and those are item spikes later in the game, and a bit of his scaling now that Flame has a bit ahead of him on.
And Darshan, you know, he's at a point where he probably can go up against the J4.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to do so when you don't have vision, when you don't know where the Bard is, right? Ole was roaming down there, threatening that. So had Darshan ever committed, you know, it would have been a 2v1 scenario. He would get taken down.
That's also, good call. The range they have to worry about. That's Pobelter or Tempered Fate to save the situation.
All those semi-globals. I mean, they're going to try and get a pick anywhere.
Oh, missed time.
Just missed the sweep.
Yeah, and now without a flash on Camille, the Baron can just be continued by Immortals. I mean, so much about this is shutting down what COD is trying to do, and the question now is, will they go for a fight after this Baron?
Oh, great vision to Naba. Ole with the pink ward over the wall as well if they tried to come in any quicker.
Here we go.
What will they decide to do here? There's the chomp up onto Dardoch. They lock them both in. He's forced to jump out. Afromoon again left on the backside. There's just nobody else to help him once he helps them. 9-2 here.
Oh,
great
big
shockwave. This is the turnaround. Darshan tries to find it in, but there's Pobelter in flame again on the front line. Ole protecting Cody's son in the back.
And it's going to take more time for Stixay and Huhi to really be able to get the items to shred through these tanks. Immortals have been pushing the pace so well. But Darshan does have his ultimate. if Immortals steps too far forward, they could perhaps look for something.
They look confident. There's the
TP coming in from Flame on the side. They're going to try to collapse on them.
His own deadly flourish. Codyson locks him up. The taunt, the crowd control on Darshan. The ultimatum not going to save his life. And now Codyson to kite this out with Pobelter. It's a 2v1. Flame just on the backside, ready to flag and drag in and give everybody the Demacian might. Pobelter still alive. One more taunt. Flashes into lockdown CLG. Dardock now staring at the light, and he is taken down.
And you thought maybe that teleport was going to come in a little bit too late for Flame, but it was just in time. Codyson cleans up the back end of that fight. CLG needed to make a play. That was their window potentially back in the game, but as soon as Codyson started getting those crits off, not only did they get CLG down, now they can push with this Baron buff.
And Pobelter did such a good job peeling for him, keeping him safe, denying Darshan's ultimate onto him, and they will crack the first inhibitor, but that was such a well-played 2v3, delaying time until Flame got there. You know, it was looking like CLG would be able to take over, you know, this part of the fight, but the route into the taunt onto Darshan, he has to use his ultimate on Pobelter, even just defensively, but now they don't have any lockdown for Codyson, so they can't get over to him.
Exactly, and Stixxay can't really shoot Pobelter. He didn't have his complete last push before this fight, so he tries to go for Cody. He's got the fourth shot in the chamber, 789, and then Flame is here to clean up the backside and finish off Huhi, but so much of this was on Pobelter, soaking all of that damage. The insane power spike, especially with the Gargoyle Stone Plate. Now on 3 people, since all this game is about team fights, always proccing that.
I was going to mention that. 3 stone plates. Oh, I've used my damage. I'm going to die. Let me just press that active.
Yeah, it's pretty tough, and it synergizes so well with all of these champions because you're essentially pretty cooldown gated on your damage. They're not massive auto attack damage champions. So you fly in, you spend all your abilities, you pop it right then, and then as the Gargoyle Stone Plate expires, you have your abilities coming back up and you can start to pump out that damage once more. It's very synergistic.
They're on a ward.
Oh no, Stixxay gets caught.
This is the one though. If they can set this up and retaliate, we'll have to see. The shockwave is in there, but it has not been used yet.
Oh, beautiful up by Smithy.
They turn back. Dardock low, Darshan low. Pobelter's in the fight and he punches straight to the back line. Darshan falls first. The turret will follow as the shockwave is used in retreat for CLG. Nobody can follow up on the damage, and Immortals once again, with any CLG members in front of them, cut them down and head for the Nexus.
They just smashed CLG in that fight. CLG was trying to be cute. They didn't pink ward, they didn't sweep where they were standing, and that was disastrous at the end.
Immortals really making a case for themselves as the best team in North America, taking down CLG very convincingly in game number 1.
It's going to be 33 minutes in, 17-4, demanding victory for Immortals in game 1.
Yeah, pretty much everything worked for Immortals in this game. They got all of those power picks that they could flex around early in the draft. Once they got the laning phases set, they didn't have any hard losing lanes, and the one thing that they needed to guard against was the Caitlyn turret push, which they did with an early 4-man roam. On top of that, they were able to play very well as a team and consistently force team fights and completely shut down the aggression of CLG, which has been working against every other team in North America.
I just think it's such an impressive game for Immortals, both from the drafting to the vision control that was so powerful throughout the game. They had full objective control because of that. They get an uncontested Baron because they kept that up for 15, 20 minutes. They never ceded vision really around that Baron, and I think this is a game to hang your hat on. It's very impressive stuff from Immortals.
Very nicely done. We have way more to go here. I hope we're going to a game 3. And for a closer look on that Immortals win, let's send it over to our analysts.
Thank you very much, Riv. Now, I'm not going to say we told you so, but we told you so. I mean, exactly as we had expected. Smithy and Immortals putting a lot of focus into the bot lane when it comes to those early minutes and making sure they garner an advantage for Codyson and Ole. But before we get to the actual gameplay, I want to look at the champion setups around how they picked these lane matchups, and in particular in the bot lane, we look at Stixxay and Afromu taking, the classic strong laner in Caitlyn right alongside that Tahm Kench.
Exactly. I mean, Tahm Kench has been rising in popularity in Korea, and as we know, a lot of teams taking their cues there.
Yep.
The other thing, Doran's shield, coming through, and a lot of shifts here in the bottom lane. So it's not, completely wild that they're early picking this Tom Kench, because we have seen it before. And, you have a higher success chance of getting through the lane phase, to be this useful tank and to be able to get people out of crown control with a Caitlyn as your AD carry. Well, so and they duo up on that.
Exactly. So to some degree, it looks like CLG has opted for a relatively safe bot lane. They have the opportunity to push the lane if they need to with the range of Caitlyn, but also to farm under turret and then have that kind of escape path of, gobbling the Caitlyn up and running out anytime a gate comes. But even still, Immortals finds their way to get kills in the bot lane.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, CLG, they also are drafting the split push style here with the newly buffed Camille coming on the top side. So they're going with pretty much the same stuff that we did expect from them as far as Darshan focus on the top side. So bottom lane, just don't die, right? And try and play that safe lane. As you said, though, a lot of the plays coming through, and it's not safe.
Well, so the question becomes, as we had posed prior to the match, would these teams stick with their patterns, or would they adjust outside of the patterns that have been established, and Immortals sticks with theirs, Pobelter, Xmithy roaming out of the mid lane and down towards that bot lane to get his first blood 440 into the game, get that bot lane rolling right.
So here it is, the gank, duly assisted here by Olay with the Bard. Magical Journey allows Smithy to get in there, and oh, how sweet it is to get that first blood on your teammates.
Yeah, so here's the thing. So Xmithy gets that first blood. Meanwhile, Dardoch trying to catch up in the lane, as was mentioned. He kind of had his back stopped by the Krugs and is just now farming to catch back up. Will get a kill on the top side of the map as well, falling in with the trend. But at the end of the day, it's that story of the bot lane and getting Cody Sun and Ole those advantages that they can roll into mid and late game team fights. We saw that 31 minutes into the game, a 4-for-1 in the mid lane after the Baron call from Immortals.
And this is really where it all comes down to, right? We're talking about, the improvements from Ole and Cody Sun, and they're playing well in their own right, so it justifies more resource being spent down in the bottom lane. And Cody Sun absolutely demolishes this team fight. Pobelter doing work on the front line with Galio does give him amazing space to work with, but the execution is huge here from actually both these guys, and so much surprising damage here coming out of this Jhin. Absolutely blasting CLG.
And I think that's where we can kind of return to that question about team identity coming into the split, right? What does Xmithy do for Immortals and what does Dardoch do for CLG? And in the case of Immortals, they have talented laners. They have talent in that bot lane. Now it's about giving them the support system that can get them off the ground and let them win the game for you. Xmithy slots into that role much better.
Exactly. That's why we wanted to highlight so clearly in that augmented reality segment, Smithy's ganks, right? It's not just, his mentality and his late game, game knowledge that people are talking about, right? He's got very effective early game, and it was on show here, and they were able to snowball. That's the really big, important thing here too. When you're talking about, taking that #1 spot, snowballing those early leads into clean victories is the key.
And in large part, as we see Dardoch on your screens here, to me, he felt unnoticed in this game, where Xmithy was making those early moves. It did feel like Dardoch was very much sitting in a more farm-focused early game, just trying to keep himself relevant from a, golden experience standpoint. But while turrets are falling all around the map, you're just conceding map control to Immortals, and ultimately that's what kind of let them be the decision makers in terms of starting that Baron completely uncontested.
And I like how the members of Immortals all are talking about being more vocal and more proactive. Ole's a guy who talked previously about, he's worried about his teammates going to get mad at him or his teammates, doubting. And that seems to all be washed away for the entire team. And these decisive calls that you're talking about are coming through, over and over again.
So what's the adjustment here going into game 2 if you're Dardoch? I'm putting you in the position of Dardoch. You're back on CLG as the jungler, Kobe. What do you do in terms of identifying either, early jungle pathing? Are you going to try and go help and counter gank in the bot lane? Or will you decide to pull focus and focus more towards Darshan, for example?
I think maybe putting some more priority on getting, one of those early jungle picks for Dardoch that will allow him to be more proactive. But you also always have to take into account the matchups for your lanes, right? Draft some winning lanes to work around so that you can, open up a space on the map for him to start to work. I don't necessarily think going to try and meet Smithy every time even if he does continue to go to the bottom lane over and over, is always going to be the case. But I think that CLG are going to make adjustments in the draft come second time, because this was definitely a deviation from them. And you can see, you know, where the deviation was probably inspired from, but the execution just wasn't there.
Yeah, of course, we spend all this time talking about the bot lane. I do want to look at the top lane just briefly. We saw the Camille come in after some minor buffs to her. Again, it wasn't necessarily the determining factor in this matchup, but you could already see, again, kind of that trend for CLG towards getting Darshan onto a strong split pusher. It's just that the resources and the investment wasn't necessarily there to get him off the ground and make him a threat.
Exactly. The thing you're talking about where Dardoch feels like he's behind the whole time, and you get into that mentality as a jungler where you're trying to catch up, and if you have to go cover for a laner, now you're going to lose camps. Now you can't go over to that side because now your camps are warded. And it all kind of snowballs from there.
All right, well, there we have it. Some thoughts on Game 1. We're going to step away for a quick break. When we return, it's Game 2 of the battle for first place. Don't go anywhere. You're watching CLG versus Immortals.
I'm gonna pocket. Only got $20 in my pocket. Gonna pocket. Looking for a pocket.
This is Pocket Awesome.
Pocket Shop by Pocket More.
Flashes forward to get him to safety, but they still want Aphromoo. They get first blood. Immortals on the board. As he is the hero of the fight, but who comes up with the kill? Who is the victor? Aphromoo goes down. Ole is also down as supports have fallen.
Yeah, flash. Just keep running. Keep running.
Fucking got him. Let's go.
Go. Good job, good job. Don't die, don't die, don't die.
I'm going, dude. I'm not gonna die.
I know.
Walk up mid.
Walk up mid.
Go mid.